Well, I'd like to start off just by saying a big thank you. Adonia mentioned it in the announcements, but last week, we moved, and that was the pictures don't do it justice. It was a huge amount of work, even with many people, and Adonia and I are just really humbled by how many people showed up, and also how many people just worked so hard all afternoon to help make that happen. We were so very unprepared. We focused all of our energy on renovating the house, which was and still isn't anywhere near ready, but we hardly packed anything. I mean, the only reason we had some stuff packed is because Virginia Rose and Yoshi and different people came and helped us out with packing, but we didn't do much packing, we didn't do much cleaning. We were very poorly prepared, so many people just came and without even asking, they just started throwing things in boxes and cleaning the floor and cleaning the counters and just things that we were not really thinking about. And so, we're just really, really grateful and humbled by the whole experience. Adonia and I were remembering that when we moved here 8 years ago, we had one piece of furniture. It was a glider chair for nursing. And we didn't have anything else. Unfortunately, there was some things here at the parsonage, but it was a very simple move. We had boxes of clothes and some photo albums and maybe a few other things. It was very simple. We didn't have much. And this time, we had a lot of stuff. And a lot of things have changed in the last 8 years, we realized, and it's hard to believe just that all of this has happened. I'm sure that many of you, when we first talked about the beginning of the year, the idea of buying a new parsonage and, finding a YAMI coordinator and, new family to live in that apartment and all these changes that we wanted to make, to be fair, it's reasonable that some of you may have been a little bit skeptical about that. And here we are. It's actually happening. Now, we spent the last week, installing the dishwasher and installing the dryer and the washing machine, and we still don't have doorknobs on most of the doors, including the bathroom, and we don't have curtains for the most part, and we don't have any air conditioning or heating, and we don't have countertops, but we're making do, and it's all progressing, and it's all happening in the timeline that we need it to happen. And as Adonia mentioned, YAMI is in the process of moving to the old parsonage, and it's kind of bad timing because several of them are at Sports Fest right now, so they're not here to help. So John especially has been working really hard all day, days, just moving all the stuff over. He's relatively new to YAMI, so he doesn't know where all the plants and stuff came from and the dishes and things, but he's just like, okay, these things got to go. So he's moving them over, so grateful. And then Gloria's also been working on it as well. And a new family is arriving on Tuesday. And by the way, they are coming with almost nothing. I checked their flight. They're coming on JetBlue, so we know they're coming with nothing, right? So our church is providing, we're trying to figure out what furniture we can provide, and we're trying to go do some shopping and whatnot. But if you happen to have any extra sets of silverware or dishware or things like that you could get to us by today or tomorrow, then we can get a sense of what we need to go and buy, because we want them to be able to land here and be able to pick up their life, because it's a big change. They've got 3 kids, 4th kid on the way. Husband's mostly going to be staying in New York for his work, so it's going to be a stressful time, and we want them to be welcomed and to be able to start their new life in a healthy way. When you make a big change like that, it can be very stressful, and there can be a lot of conflict, and there can be a lot of emotions, and so that's not a good way to start moving to a new community. And they're really moving here because they see something in this community that they really want for their family, and that's the reason. That's the reason, guys. It's not because they do have some friends here, but it's not because of job or school or things like that. They want to be a part of what's going on that we are all a part of creating. So, So for us, it's a big time of change, as I've mentioned, but we're seeing a lot of change happening in the community as well. We see a lot of change happening in the world. I think it's fair to say that we live in a time of great change. And this particular time of year is a time of change because we're starting to move into the fall season. People are starting to go back to school if they're in school. We have Unja going to GPA soon. Yeah, that deserves an applause. We will miss her for sure. The Vogenthalers are dealing with a big change, right? They lost someone very important to them and their family, so that's a big adjustment. Change is kind of all around us all the time, and I feel like particularly now, this is maybe why we talk about change a lot. But I want to talk today about the beauty of changes. And I want to start off with a quote from our founder, Reverend Moon. He said, "Within the life of any individual, there is a difference between his childhood, youth, middle age, and old age. Not only in human life is this true, but also in nature. We see 4 seasons coming one right after the other. If you were to insist that you would always live in summer, and if you never prepared for the winter, you would have a problem when winter arrived. In the winter, those who don't think of the coming spring and confine themselves in snug, warm rooms will be uncomfortable in the spring. Can you insist on wearing winter clothes when summer comes? No, you need to change your clothes to suit the season. This is exactly how happens in our lives. Those who belong to the summer of life, which is the prime of youth, want to have eternal youth, but that is not possible. It's natural that there must be change, but are you not inclined to insist on remaining the same age? You are afraid that by changing, you will somehow decline. You know from experience that you don't always go up. Every day your mood has ups and downs. You may think that you want to have no downs at all in your life, but that cannot be." So change, there's all kinds of change, right? And in many ways, many of the changes that we personally are experiencing are kind of changes that we initiated and created, so they're a little bit easier to digest. But also many times change comes in a way that we didn't expect or ask for or want. Kind of like changes that are just thrown upon us or thrust upon us in life. That's a lot more difficult to digest. But one way or another, change is often hard. I'd say it's usually hard. But as hard as it can be at times, it's also a necessary and normal part of our life. And that's because there's beauty in change. There's beauty in watching our kids grow up and go through different stages of life, become adults, become parents. A friend of mine asked me the other day, he's like, "Are you looking forward to when the kids are 18 and moved out of the house?" And I was like, no. I don't know where this concept comes from. I don't know what kind of parents started this way of thinking, or maybe non-parents, I don't know, maybe thought that. Of course, I look forward to my children growing up and maturing and having families of their own and being independent. But the idea of 18 and they're out of the house is kind of silly to me, as if that's the goal of parenting, to get them to a certain age until they can not be in your home anymore so you can have your own life back. I don't get it. Yeah, it doesn't make sense to me. There's beauty in going through the different stages of life. There's beauty in change. There's beauty in your children becoming teenagers. There's beauty in becoming old. There's beauty in new life. There's beauty in celebrating the memory of a loved one that has passed. There is beauty in the fall changing colors, and there's beauty in the cold and the snow. There's beauty in all of it if we're looking for it. Often we have our preference, and we want things to be a certain way. So we like that thing, but we don't like the other thing. And, I get it, but we all have our preferences. But, life won't work according to our preferences. Here's a verse from Genesis. "As long as the earth remains, there will be springtime and harvest, cold and heat, summer and winter, day and night." So even though we talk about change a lot, change is a necessary and honestly unavoidable aspect of our life, we, I think, as human beings, have a hard time to really embrace change. There's a part of us that craves it, like feels alive when we are in a chaotic situation or a situation where it's like that really brings the best of us out. And then there's a part of us that's like, I just want to have a simple, steady, comfortable life, right? I think we can all relate to a little bit of both. But I think that we are extra many times fearful or intimidated by change because oftentimes the change we experience in our life is quite painful. It's like I said before, it's kind of thrown at us, unexpected things that happen to us in our life that feel tragic or painful and scarring, to the point that many times in our life we work through our whole life trying to digest the experiences that we've had, the changes that we went through when we were young. That's a reality, unfortunately. And we all have these experiences to varying degrees, some definitely more than others. So I think that because of that, we often tend to fear or avoid change. At the same time, times of change are really a precious opportunity for new beginnings. In a moment of change, there's often an opportunity for clarity that wasn't there before, to see things from a new perspective. You know, nobody is happy that Mark Vogenthaler passed away last week. It's a sad moment for many, and of course, we understand that it's not like he's gone. He's definitely gone to a better place, and we can be happy for him, and we can remember his memory and celebrate the things in his life that he has left for us, that he accomplished. At the same time, I find that whenever somebody passes, we all step back and we take a pause. Because that person that maybe we took for granted, that has always been there in our life, and kind of thought he'd always be there. Mark would always come up to us after his church, almost every sermon, without fail, Pastor Mike. And then he would say something like, you know, some point about the sermon or some question that he had about something totally unrelated to the sermon, kind of 50-50 chance. And, you know, I kind of just was like, hey, this is just the deal. You know, this is just what happens every week. But that's never going to happen anymore. And so we all take a step back and we're like, that person is gone. You know, I'm not going to see them again for a while, hopefully. And it's definitely like a moment of reflection, I think, for most people to really think, wow, you know, Mark didn't know that he had, you know, when he was going to pass. He didn't know he only had one day left last Saturday, you know. He didn't know that was going to be the last time he was going to celebrate his wife's birthday on Earth, you know. His Keiko's birthday was Saturday, by the way, the day before. So, you know, she was like, I'm grateful that he waited till after my birthday was over. I was like, that's a very gracious sentiment that you have. Very sweet. Gosh, I lost my train of thought there. But yeah, we take a step back and we reflect on the preciousness of life. And that none of us knows how much time we have, and to really try to make more effort to appreciate the people in our life, to appreciate the time that I have, because I don't know how long that will be. And in that way, there's beauty in Mark's passing, because it gives us all an opportunity to see him and one another and ourselves from a different perspective, maybe a more clear perspective, a more real perspective than just expecting that things will go on and on and on the way that we've always thought that they would. So our lives are changing. Oh yeah, also with the moving. One of the other things that was really humbling about the move is that because we were so poorly prepared, our house was just a disaster. And we've, I can't make any excuses and say it was because we were so busy, because it's honestly been that way for a long time. But we have allowed, unfortunately, and to my embarrassment, our house to get so messy. It was dirt everywhere, and at one point we had mice, and we caught the mice, but then I never cleaned up the mouse poop, and it was just like really embarrassing to have all these people going through the house, cleaning up, and seeing our messy life. And I felt really embarrassed, but at the same time, I had to really be like, okay, yeah, I'm not proud of that. And now that we're in a new home, I'd really like to make a new beginning and a fresh start and be more clean, be more organized. So it was good in that way, but not in a comfortable way, that's for sure. So our lives are changing, our world is changing, even our church and our community is changing all the time. And I know that also in terms of our church, even like our local community here, change is necessary. Positive change, growth, innovation, new ideas, creativity, new people. If we don't have that, it's well understood in church growth literature that a stagnant church or a church that's never changing is the same as a dying church. They're not different. They just seem different, but they're not different. So change is necessary. If we don't change, then we stagnate. We have to learn to embrace change, to see the good, and even changes that maybe we didn't ask for or didn't want in our life. It could be an opportunity to see a new path, maybe where we didn't see one before. Maybe God is nudging us in a direction, and we weren't really open to it until some change came into our life that made us aware that maybe God is nudging me in a different direction, or God wants me to do this or to do that. It's also important, I think, in our journey in life, as we seek to try to become people that embody God's character and become God's children in reality, that we also recognize that God is a master of change. God is dealing with change all the time. And when we study the principle and when we study the Bible, we see that God has always had to change. God himself doesn't change. God's long-term plan doesn't change. But God is dependent on what we do in our lives to fulfill his will. God created this world around change. It didn't have to be this way. We didn't have to have 4 seasons. We didn't have to have variety. But God created the world around change. That's why we can enjoy certain things like a breeze on a cool night or a beautiful sunset. And when we look at as I mentioned before, the Bible, and we look at Exodus, we see that God constantly had to change his plans because the people things didn't go according to God's hope for the people. And time after time after time, the people complained and they went a different direction and they said, I don't want to do this, I don't want to do that. Well, we should have stayed in Egypt. We lived better lives as slaves. That's what they said. And at least we had meals like that that we knew were going to be there every day. Even our founder at one point said that even actually God's plan A in Exodus was actually that was not actually that Moses would leave the Pharaoh's palace and go into the wilderness and then come back and take the Israelites out of Egypt. The plan actually was that that Moses would inherit the country, and that would be the country of the Israelites. That he doesn't talk about that very much, but I know he said it at one point. So how many plans are we now? You say you have plan A, you have plan B, you have plan C. Where are we? I don't know, but definitely nowhere near plan A, that's for sure. But God has had to be flexible. God has had to be creative. God has had to be patient. And I think that's an important lesson for us in our life when we deal with change. Here's from James 1:17. Whatever is good and perfect is a gift coming down to us from God our Father, who created all the lights in the heaven. He never changes or casts a shifting shadow. So this is, talking about God never changes. Have you never heard? Have you never understood? The Lord is the everlasting God, the creator of all the earth. He never grows weak or weary. So in a changing world where everything changes, where the people in our life change and the world around us changes, even nature is constantly changing, we have very few things that we can hold on to and say, this never changes. But we can't even expect that the people who maybe are unchanging in our life are always going to be there. They're not. They're not always going to be there. So connecting to the heart of God and the unchangingness of God and the unchangingness of God's word is really the only thing that I can think of that's really unchanging in this world. And if you don't believe in God, then there's nothing unchanging in this world. So there you go, That is just the way it is. But it helps that when we connect to the unchangingness of God and the unchangingness that God has plans for my life and for your life, it helps us to be able to navigate the changes of life that just can really throw us off sometimes. So change will happen in our lives. And for the most part, that's a good thing. The question is how we will embrace change when it happens. What will we do? Can we be patient? Can we be flexible? Can we seek for a higher perspective? Can we seek for God's perspective? Can we seek for God's lesson in the things that are happening in our life? Even the things that maybe seem painful or undesirable, especially in those cases. Lastly, I want to end with a quote from Reverend Moon. He said, "The goal set up by God, the Creator, cannot change. God is the center of each person's conscience and the objective of all people's hope. No matter how much time passes, no matter what course history takes, He can never change. Before eternity and after eternity, God cannot change. That is why God said, 'I am the Alpha and the Omega, the first and the last, the beginning and the end.'" So, and I will finish with, in the world of change, how to digest what we encounter and make it something good is always the question. More than anyone else, young people are faced with constant changes because their dispositions are like that. You seek stimulating things and you want to have variety all the time. If you can digest the problems and changes and still want to have more, that's all right. But if you don't have the digestive power and yet desire to experience new things every moment, it's not possible. You as young people must learn to manage your own problems. You do not know the future before you. You need to learn how to go through the path of life in such a way that you will be able to think of every event positively so that you can continually grow. So please join me in prayer. Good morning, our dearest Heavenly Parent. I'm grateful for this opportunity, this gathering, our church community. Heavenly Parent, I really hope and pray that you could have spoken through this message to whoever may have needed to hear, get some glimpse into your heart and your desire for our lives. Heavenly Parent, each and every single person here is going through some change in their life, Heavenly Parent, of some kind. And we as much as we may want to live a simple and comfortable life, Heavenly Parent, where our life is always constantly being bombarded by unexpected events and unexpected things and changes and people in our life, Heavenly Parent, and sometimes we have a hard time to digest things, and it's very difficult for us, Heavenly Parent, and we just really pray for your perspective, Heavenly Parent, as we deal with change, as we deal with loss in our life, as we deal with unexpected events and circumstances, Heavenly Parent, please give us the wisdom to be able to discern what is your lesson and the things that we can gain from these experiences, how we can become bigger and better people for you, Heavenly Parent, how we can take the people in our lives more, with more grace, treat people with more grace. We can appreciate people and cherish people more, Heavenly Parent, as we know that nothing lasts forever. Nothing stays the same forever, Heavenly Parent. And also that we can have the perspective to see the beauty in those changes, Heavenly Parent, not just to suffer from one change to the next, but to see where there is goodness, where there is appreciation, where we can cherish the good things that we have in our life, Heavenly Parent, when we go through the challenges and difficulties and pain at the same time. We thank you, and I offer this message and this service and this time up to you, and I pray this in my name, Michael Adonia Hendrick, a blessed central family. Amen and adieu. Thank you.